When we talk about presence-driven leadership, so much of the focus is on external strategy. But what about the internal stories we have running on autopilot? Today, we're going to dive into a framework that helps us strategically audit the very foundation of our thoughts so we can make sure our internal world is truly aligned with the growth we're looking for. This quote from Henry Ford, it just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? And look, this isn't some fluffy, positive thinking mantra. It's a recognition that our beliefs literally create our functional reality. If your whole mindset is built on "I can't," your brain will become a world-class expert at finding evidence for that story. This whole process is about making sure your internal narrative is a catalyst for you, not a cage. So, let's actually look at that architecture. You know that stubborn self-doubt? It's not just a fleeting thought, it's a whole system. You can think of it like a silent architect that's constantly shaping your reality, running on autopilot and creating this powerful feedback loop between what you think and what you do. And here's exactly how that loop works. It all kicks off with a limiting belief, maybe something like, "I'm just terrible at presentations." Well, that belief starts pulling the strings on your behavior. Maybe you put off preparing, or you hesitate when it's your turn to speak. So of course, the presentation feels a little shaky. And what does your brain do? It doesn't say, maybe we should have prepared more. No, it says, "See, I told you so. We are terrible at this." And boom, the whole cycle gets reinforced. But here's the really good news. We can absolutely consciously break this cycle. The key is to move from that unconscious, knee-jerk reaction to taking conscious responsibility for our internal stories. We are not powerless here. In fact, there are proven, science-based principles that let us dismantle this whole architecture of doubt. It really boils down to two core principles. The first one is name it, tame it. This is backed by some amazing research from UCLA, where they literally saw in brain scans that just putting a feeling into words, they call it affect labeling, it actually calms down the brain's alarm system. The second big idea is to trade opinions for evidence. This is a cornerstone of cognitive restructuring, where we just stop accepting our feelings as facts and start acting more like an investigator. And this right here, this shows the crucial difference. On one side, you've got emotional reasoning, that hazy, heavy feeling of, well, I feel like I'm incompetent, so I must be. On the other side is objective analysis, which is all about grounding ourselves in cold, hard, observable data. The whole practice is about making that one shift, from feeling to fact. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but how do we actually make it practical? Well, that's where the belief buster process comes in. This is a simple, repeatable framework that's designed to put these scientific principles into action in a really structured way, helping us find clarity and true internal alignment. The whole thing unfolds in three pretty straightforward phases. First, we capture and identify the belief. Second, we challenge that belief with actual evidence. And third, we reframe it, and this is the most important part. We act on it. So let's walk through this, one phase at a time. All right, phase one. This starts with just listening to our own inner critic. When you get into one of those situations that makes you feel tense, what's the first thought that shows up? The goal here isn't to judge it or fight with it. It's just to capture it, to boil down all that mental chatter into one clear first-person sentence. And what's kind of cool is that technology can actually help us with this. You can think of a simple AI tool as a completely neutral mirror. You can just throw all of your unfiltered critical thoughts in there, and it can help you cut through the emotional static to find the single core belief that you really need to work on. So this leads us right into phase two, the evidence audit. This is where we completely switch roles. You're no longer the defendant on trial. Now, you get to be the neutral investigator. Your only job is to systematically list observable, time-stamped facts, not feelings, but facts, that either support or contradict the belief you've just identified. And this is where you can really see the power of the audit. For that belief, "I'm terrible at presentations," the evidence for might be, "Well, I did skip a key slide in the Q2 review," or "My heart always races." But then you look at the evidence against. A client's email that called your summary crystal clear and actionable. Your mentor rating a rehearsal as strong and engaging. When you put these facts right next to each other, the absolute certainty of that negative belief just starts to dissolve. So now, based on that more balanced set of evidence, we can finally move to phase three and craft an empowering reframe. And notice, this isn't about toxic positivity. It's not, "I'm the best presenter in the world." It's just a more accurate, more balanced, and frankly, a much more useful belief. It acknowledges what's needed for success, rehearsal, and feedback, and it points toward a new possibility. But here's the deal. Insight alone doesn't change the brain. Behavior does. And this is what makes the final part of this process the most crucial one of all. It's about taking that new, reframed belief and locking it in through deliberate action. The key is to use a very specific time frame, 48 hours. The goal is to design one micro-action, a tiny, tiny test that you can run within the next 48 hours to start gathering some real evidence for your new, reframed belief. Now, this isn't about trying to find motivation or relying on willpower. A micro-action is just a small, pre-decided experiment. By deciding exactly what you'll do and when you'll do it, you completely bypass that internal debate. This is how you build momentum, and trust me, momentum beats motivation every single day of the week. Let's look at a really concrete example. If your new belief is, with rehearsal, I can deliver engaging presentations, your micro-action isn't to go give a perfect keynote. No way. It's something tiny, like record a 3-minute dry run and ask 2 colleagues for 1 point of positive and 1 point of constructive feedback. Do you see how specific that is? The what, the who, the when, and the where are all defined. That level of clarity makes it almost impossible not to do. See, this entire process is about moving from being a passive learner to being an active applicant. So the real question to reflect on for yourself is, what is your tiny test? What's one small experiment you could run in the next 48 hours to gather some new evidence for a more empowering belief? Ultimately, this framework is really about shifting how we build confidence. It's a move away from just wishing or hoping we felt more confident, and it's a move toward the actual practice of building a body of evidence that proves our capability to ourselves. Real grounded confidence isn't built on hope, it's built on data. And that's really the big takeaway. The goal isn't just to think differently, it's to create proof you can actually feel. When we start to dismantle that old architecture of doubt, we create space for a grounded sense of our own internal authority. Moving from the exhaustion of guesswork to the clarity of proof, well, that's the ultimate mindset upgrade.